I read that you said in a couple of articles that you saw a failure in the fitness industry to put members first. Do you think some of that, it comes down to what we're talking about with the product? In terms of them sort of not really focusing the energy on that, as you say, they're putting the member first and then building the infrastructure around that. And if you go back to what you said about Nike, it was to do with how can we make people, was it better or faster or something like that. So it sounded as though they had a kind of really clear goal of what they were about, and then they built this business around it. Do you think the fitness industry may not really know what business or what their goal is, and that's why they sort of failed to build systems around it, which is what you're saying, to putting the member first, would you say?
Yeah, I think it's interesting. Well, so one, I think it's the nature of business, right? Like that's why we'll have quotes about you got to burn bridges, you got to burn the boats, right? Like the fitness industry grew up just in a fundamentally different business model, right? If we go to kind of big boxes, jamming contracts down people's throats, making it hard to quit, oversell the box, hope to God they don't all show up, right? Or even if we look at, we can look at other kind of media-based fitness businesses that didn't transition to streaming for a really long time because it's a lot easier to inspire you to purchase that box of DVDs. I don't care if you open it or not. It is what it is. Those transitions are hard. And so I think Nike, fortunate in the sense that the vision was so large, right? When you're saying like our job is to inspire and motivate every athlete on the planet, and asterisk, if you have a body, you're an athlete, like that gives you a lot of license to play, right? That's not like, hey, our job is to have a 30%, box contribution rate. We want to open as many boxes as we can. So one, big vision. Two, really strong leadership. Mark had set a goal that he wanted to double the revenue of the business in like 4 or 5 years, which is staggering to think that a company of Nike's scale and size and maturity would set out an audacious goal like that makes your team go, holy crap, like how would we possibly do that? And so I think a bit of, not all of those, I guess I shouldn't say luck, like all of those are really strong business principles that came from an incredible founding team, an incredible management team. I think when you're in a business that's having success in a business model, transitioning to a different thing is really scary, particularly if you're a public company or you're a later stage private company, or you have, investors that you're working with. That stuff is super hard. And so I don't say it to trivialize how hard it is or the complexity or how scary it is or how much risk there is. But I do think that the industry for a long time has been, or was, to some degree still is, forcing its business model on consumers, as opposed to going, what do I think that you need to be most successful, right? Now, even at Nike, we had to talk to 400 million people at a time for it to feel like it was meaningful enough to move the business, right? And that, when you think about doing the implications of that from a service side, in terms of I want to help you get better at an athlete, that's really hard, right? The odds that 400 million people need the same thing, it's tough, right? And so I think there's just a reality of business where, changing ahead of need is really, really hard. And so for us, my partner, Mike Melby, was, at a group that was New Evolution Ventures that had 3,000 plus doors, fitness doors across the planet, some great brands like UFC, Gym, and bought Crunch and turned it around, all of that sort of stuff, and kind of different version of the same thing, right? Certainly super successful at what they were doing. But at the time we came together, we were looking at a demographic environment where millennial and Gen Z consumers were probably 65% of the relevant kind of consumer market opportunity. And if you apply that to, big, empty, big box, jamming a contract down somebody's throat, very little digital component, not brands that stand for something and are taking a clear, have a clear consumer voice, like that's just not a fit, right? Like that's just not what any of us would say about that to stereotype that base, what they want and need. And frankly, what we were already seeing when you were seeing boutiques grow at 30-35% a year, when you're seeing digital fitness grow at 40+% a year. And this is, 7 years ago. So I think it's easy for, Mike and I came together and just said, hey, there's just this huge opportunity here where you have just entrenched incumbents who are great at the thing that they were doing, but not really interested in or frankly capable of adapting to what we think this consumer really needs, right? And so,
do you think that's the case? Like most of them are going to really struggle to kind of make that shift.
I think it's going to be really painful. Yeah, and I think we've seen it, right? Again, so there was a reason boutiques were growing at the rate they were growing. There was a reason digital pre-COVID was growing at the rate it was growing, and we know, we can talk about some of the pain that some of those at-home fitness players may be in from a stock price standpoint, but I don't think any of us would argue that at-home fitness wasn't accelerated over the last 2 years from an adoption and willingness to pay standpoint. But yeah, I think it's non-trivial. I think it's super easy to go, oh, cool, we have an app, we have an app now, so we're a hybrid fitness company. Like, that's not a thing. When you look at, again, if you go back to what we're asking people to do, we're asking you to carve out a bunch of time from your day. Work, kids, family, whatever else you may have. We're asking you to put the beer and the pizza away, step away from the TV, the phone, the whatever, and get up and suffer with us for 45 minutes, plus get there, plus shower, plus do, right? Like, that's a massive choice for people. And the reality is, I think as fitness operators, we have to understand that we're competing for your time, period. And you have amazing things to do with that. And we have the little angel on your shoulder who's going like, hey, Brian, you should do this. But again, most of us don't really need, we don't have a thing that's causing us to need to work out. So it's a big choice. And I think for all of us, we have to view our job as how do we shrink the significance of that choice? We believe you can do that through providing really powerful brands. So I'm sure we'll talk about that later on, about kind of how we think through partners that we want to partner with to drive authenticity and kind of passion and conviction for people. We can do that through availability, which is if you find a thing that you love to do, you should be able to do it whenever, wherever, however you want to. So for us, that is absolutely at home. That should also be linked to a studio opportunity, because sometimes we just want a coach or we want other people sweating beside us and we want kind of a more controlled environment. And we like to integrate events because they do provide that purpose, right? You don't have to just wake up and decide I should probably do a spin class today. It's, hey, I signed up with my buddies to do that thing 3 months from now, and if I don't get to the gym, I'm not gonna be able to do it. And so we wanted to really unify how you can participate in fitness, both through kind of really targeted brands that really stand for something and speak to you at where you may be in your point in your life and what you want to do and who you want to do it with, but also just remove that choice. Like, I have to go figure out what app to do at home, and then I got to go figure out a gym that I like or a studio that I like, and then I got to figure out why should I be doing this anyway? And again, if you're an operator in any one of those silos, sure, you can acquire something, or sure, you can have somebody build you an app, but that's not what you do. And check the box, if you go back to one of our underlying premises, which is it's about shrinking that gap and removing friction and making sure that what we're asking of you or offering to you is awesome. A check the box solution just doesn't work. Right. It's not about just having an app. It's not about a technology company opening up a studio. It's about providing one integrated experience that's actually where the pieces are aware of each other, connected to each other, and compelling and purposeful and built. And so we built our whole platform to accomplish that. And I think just, again, stapling stuff together or checking a box, it's just a different thing that I don't think for this consumer base. And that, by the way, that consumer has obviously only grown in importance over the last 7 years in terms of relevancy. And so our premise is check the box won't be good enough. And unless you're built to do this, it's going to be really hard. And I still think, for the most part, a lot of people say hybrid fitness now. I still think, for the most part, that's not what people are offering. And so we believe there's a huge opportunity to really be the first that does that in a real way.